asked Alyssa if I could make this tonight. Tom, could you shut this offline for just a few minutes? Okay, she says it has to be online. All right. Okay. All right. When I was to visit Audrey last week, you know, she's in the Woodland home now. And she was reminiscing, and she said to me, I remember when 5 of us used to get up in front of the church and sing, and she listed the 5, Tom, her, Kathy, Patty, your Taylor, I forget who the other one was, Audrey. And so she says, boy, I'd like to do that again. So after I went home, I was sitting in my chair, and I was praying, and I said, God, what can I do to cheer Audrey up? Because she just was really down in the dumps. And, So I got a hold of some of the original 5. I only have one person left I have to get a hold of, and I need a phone number from you to do that. That's Patty. Do you have hers? Find it. I'll talk to you after church. So next Wednesday, we are going to go down to the Woodland home. Those 5 people are going to sing in a group like they did years ago. They're going to sing 2 songs, and then we're going to ask all the residents, because we are going to bring the residents in, we're going to ask all the residents to join in some hymns, because that's what they like to sing, is the old-fashioned hymns. And the pastor said that he thought it would be nice to take you guys down. He thought they would all need a good laugh, you know. Bring the church, they need a good laugh. But actually, it would be wonderful if you could come. But mainly what I want to do, because this is, you know, next Wednesday, so if your kids are in junior youth over there, the junior youth are going, and they're going to be passing out snacks, refreshments to the seniors. Now, since the whole church is going, if you want to take yours and meet us there, that would be great. If you can't and you want to drop them off here, the van will be leaving here at 6:45. This thing is from 7 to 8. They do need, if you're not going to be there with them, they need this paper signed. And I wanted to announce that to the parents tonight because I don't have any time left. So let's go.
So there will not be service here next Wednesday, just so everybody's clear on that. There will not be service here next Wednesday. We're meeting down at Woodland from 7 to 8. They're going to sing hymns. Dusty said we're also going to do communion with them. So just please come out and join us as we minister to the seniors at Woodland next Wednesday. What? Yeah, Dusty said you'll be done with leadership in time to go. Yep, still have leadership meeting.
All right. So tonight first off, Pastor Dusty asked me if I would like to teach on the names of God and what it means to me. He's been teaching on different names of God, and I thought, well, let me think about it and let me pray on it and see what one meant the most to me. And there's a lot of names, and there are some important ones, but the one that probably means the most to me would be Jireh, which I tried to look it up on Google, and, well, that doesn't help much, but it's supposed to mean provider. So I picked that one because my whole life, I've grew up in church my whole life, and I kind of strayed away for a few years once I graduated, and I was starting a family and all that. So I stopped coming to church, but I didn't stop praying, and I didn't stop reading the Bible. So ever since I can remember, provider, God's always pulled through and picked me up in places and gave me stuff that I probably didn't deserve, and he just came through. And I'll go on more about it when I get to my once I get to my sermon here. But today's lesson is coming out of Genesis 22:2, verse 14. I want to read it out of the Bible because I might have typed it, messed it up. So So starting at 22, verse 2. Then he said, "Take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you." So Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took 2 of his young men with him, Isaac his son, and he split wood for the burnt offering and arose and went to the place of which God told him. Then on the 3rd day, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said to his young men, "Stay here with the donkey. The lad and I will go yonder and worship. We will come back to you." So Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son, and he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and the two of them went together. But Isaac spoke to Abraham his father and said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am, my son." Then he said, "Look, the fire, the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" And if I have 2 boys, and if I knew that I had to give one of them up for an offering, it would be really hard to explain to them what would happen. But Abraham said, "My son, God will provide for you himself a lamb for a burnt offering." So the 2 of them went together. Then they came to the place which God had told him, and Abraham built an altar there and placed the wood in order, and he bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched his hand out and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, "Abraham, Abraham." So he said, "Here I am." And he said, "Do not lay your hand on the lad and do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." Then Abraham lifted his eyes and looked behind him, and there was a ram caught in a thicket by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place, "The Lord will provide," and as is said to this day, is in the mount of the Lord it shall be provided. So when we break down the story, Abraham and Sarah, a lot of you probably know the story, wanted a son, and they prayed for a son really bad. And God finally blessed him with Isaac. And then God asked Abraham to sacrifice his only son as an offering to him. How hard would that be for Abraham to do? How much confusion he would have, or why would God give me a son just to sacrifice him? I would say he could have even had some anger, but no, he just trusted God, and he was going to sacrifice his son and didn't complain or didn't try to bargain. He just went with it, but God provided a ram for him and spared Isaac. God provided for him. All my life, God has provided for me. Sometimes I didn't realize it until later. Other times I knew it, and I'm sure there are still times that I didn't know, or that didn't know that God provided, or what he provided me for, or provided me with. If I was in Abraham's shoes, I would have been thinking, "God, are you crazy for asking me to sacrifice my only son?" That we've prayed for and longed for, but also how much trust did that show Abraham had for God? I would hope if I was in Abraham's shoes, I could have had that much trust and faith knowing that God would provide. I never had to be in a place where I had to give up one of my children, but I've been in places more than I can count that I've had to fully rely on God and trust that he would provide. Matthew 6:34 says, "Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own things. Significant is the day and its own troubles." I fell on that verse a lot and throughout my years, and I still fall on it. My experience, I learned this firsthand. If I had to say, this is where my faith increased the most and where I truly learned how to trust God, There has been so many times that I sat and cried and asked God, what am I supposed to do? There's no money to pay for bills. He always says, just trust me, I will provide. Let me tell you, learning to walk by faith is one of the hardest things I think as a Christian can do, at least for me, especially when you see something and it's not possible and then God pulls through. We always want to be in control of our situations and we always want a plan. Well, sometimes plans change, things just don't work out as planned, and we constantly are learning to walk by faith in different ways. When we think that we have it all figured out, something always happens and throws us through a loop. Let your conduct be without covetousness. Be content in such things you have, for he himself has said, I will never leave you or forsake you. That's in Hebrews 13:5. People always, I'm going to go to my phone now, sorry. People always want the next best thing or the greatest things. They always want to have the newest fashion trends, the fastest cars, the fanciest high-techest gear. The list could go on and on. But sometimes we as humans get ourselves in trouble. Then we lean on our own explanations and our own understandings. Then things seem to happen. We get panicked and things seem like they're out of control. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Proverbs 3:5. This is one of my favorite verses. I have learned it by heart. Every time I feel overwhelmed or I can't figure out what I'm going through, this verse comes to my head. Jireh means the Lord will provide. He will provide in all kinds of ways. Sometimes we realize how much God provides, and other times we can't even scratch the surface of how much he provided for us. If I could look back on my life, I can see how far God has brought me and how many times he has picked me up, even when I'm the one who messed it up in the first place, which I have to say is a lot of times. But in each case, no matter how bad I have messed up, God has still provided for me, and he just didn't do it in the bare minimum. He overflowed what I needed. If I needed $10, he gave me $20, or if I needed some groceries, someone would give me more than I needed. It is so mind-blowing that the more you trust in God and not worry, the more you have time to rejoice and enjoy all the blessings to the fullest. Casting all your cares upon him, for he cares for you. 1 Peter 5:7. That's another one of my favorite verses. Life can seem a little overwhelming some days, but God will provide in all circumstances. He wants to be there for us in any and all situations. There is so much junk in this world that the devil throws at us. If we didn't have God in our lives, or we only just called on God when we needed something, we wouldn't know how to handle the attacks. We need to have a relationship with him and talk to him like he's sitting in the room with us. There's so much love that he wants to give us and so much that he has for us to receive. Peace, understanding, comfort, healing, love, compassion, mercy, and the list could go on and on. He provides for us in every way, and even ways that we don't think we need it. He has so much in store for us. And my God shall supply all of our needs according to his riches by Christ Jesus. Philippians 4:19. Sometimes we let life get too busy, and distractions of our life cause us to fall back on trusting God to the fullest. We get busy with life. We don't tend to get in the Word a lot, or we don't even pray a lot, or like we normally do. At least it has happened for me. And I hate to say it, but if I have to be honest, that happens to me. I felt terrible, and I knew I needed to do better, but every time I tried something, always came up or things happened and tried to block me from praying or reading. But in those days and those times, God still provided for me. He didn't just provide for me the minimum because I slacked off. He made what could be a big problem into a small problem, or he made a little go a long way. It amazes me that even when I was doing what seemed like the minimum, God still provided for me and my family. If I could go back to Abraham and Isaac's story, Abraham was willing to give up his son because God told him to. He trusted that God would provide for him no matter what the outcome. God did the same thing, except he did give up his one and only son to be sacrificed for all sinners and all saints, those who were too busy for him and those who were devoted those who loved him and those who didn't. How isn't that the ultimate way to provide for us? Jesus died for us, for all of our sins, for all of our healings, so that we may be able to spend eternity in heaven with him. And if we accept him into our lives and make him Lord of our lives, then God rose his only Son 3 days later to conquer death. God provides for us in every way and every day. Our job is to rely on him and trust in him. Let him do the heavy lifting. We just need to trust him and believe that when he promises something, that he will and is going to do it. I could tell you so many times and so many stories that happened that God has come through for me, but I would keep you here all night. So if you need to remember one thing from me tonight, I would say, if you learn to trust God with all your heart, and I mean all your heart, all things that weigh you down, steal your time, make you worry, plain drive you crazy, you would have joy even when others do not have joy, and even when they're thinking you're crazy for having joy. These problems that seem so big would not be big at all. God always provides, and he's always in control. He even provides when you don't think you need it or deserve it. He loves you so much that he gave his Son to die for us and rose him again 3 days later. Anytime you need him, just call upon him and let him provide. And one last verse, but seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all things will be added to you. Matthew 6:33. Thank you for your time and letting me share my story. I hope this blessed you, and I hope it sounded the way God wanted me to sound it. Before I quit, I do have one testimony. I have a lot, but I wanted to share one. So a couple weeks ago, it was actually the weekend of the barbecue up here. I was going to work, just like I do every morning, and once I got to work, I went to park in the parking spot, and my car would not get out of reverse. It was stuck. I didn't know what to do because it was stuck, and it wouldn't shut off. It wouldn't do nothing. So luckily, one of the guys that comes to work the same time I do was there. He said, well, put the emergency brake on. So I put the emergency brake on. So then I called my husband because I didn't know what to do with it. So he told me to get someone to unplug the battery. So there was another guy that was there. He had all the tools in his car, and he unplugged my battery, and I just went to work as I did. And when I was getting ready to leave, one of the supervisors came in, and he likes to work on cars. So we went out to my car to try to figure out what was wrong with it because I needed to go home. And we Googled it or YouTubed it, and it looked like where my shifter, like the thing that makes my shifter and shift gears in my car, was like broke. Something happened. The cable broke or something. So anyway, he fixed me up where I could get home. So then when I got home, which I was home, so I made it from work to home, I was gonna drive down to my dad's because they were having a harvest fest, and we couldn't get it once we got it home, we put it in park, we couldn't get it to get out of drive. So we had to rig it up so it would stay where it was. So we unplugged the battery. He called one of his friends. My husband called one of his friends, and he came on a Sunday and looked at my car and said the cable broke. So he ordered the part for my car. My dad had a spare car, so I could drive his car to and from work that week. So my car was broke on Saturday. They looked at it on Sunday. It was fixed by the next Friday. So it was only 1 week. So they got the part, and I was worried about paying for it because sometimes cars can be expensive. And my husband paid the whole amount of it without me even asking for any money, which was very nice because I had other bills that I had to pay. But the point of that story is that big problem. I thought could have been anything. Transmission could have been something horrible. That car part got fixed, got taken care of, and I didn't even have to pay for a penny for it. And that was when one of the instances that I fully relied on God, and I trusted him, and he pulled through. There's a lot of other ones that I could tell, but that was probably one of the most recent ones that I could think of that could have been something really big and really bad, and it wasn't nothing. It was minor compared to what it could have been. So, Pastor Dusty asked me, in case I ran out of time or had too much time, because he knew I was going to talk fast, if I had 2 questions or if I could provide you with anything else. So, before I ask if there's any questions, I wanted to ask you guys a question. Is there anyone that wants to share a time that God provided for them in any situations or any circumstances? Does anybody want to share anything in a way God provided for them? Okay, Jaden, go ahead.
So there was a time where we went to one of our football games, and there was a play where it was the junior varsity, and a kid bruised his neck, but he was down for about 30 minutes, so our game was on delay. And luckily, they thought it was something else, but it was just a bruised neck. So